Well, let me switch topics again, this time to abortion. When Congress debated the ban on partial birth abortion, one issue was whether this particularly gruesome abortion method was medically necessary. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, or ACOG they call it, is a natural source of medical opinion on this subject. According to the documents we received, you wrote a memo to your superiors in the Clinton White House about this. You noted that the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists was considering a statement that its experts panel found no circumstances under which partial birth abortion was the only option for saving the life or preserving the health of the woman. You wrote, quote, "This, of course, would be disaster," unquote. That's something that does bother me, because it would be a disaster, you wrote, because ACOG opposed the ban on partial birth abortion. If anyone ever found out, and you wrote that it could leak, even if ACOG did not officially release its original statement, it could have negative political consequences. So you drafted alternative language that would say that partial birth abortion, quote, "may be the best or most appropriate procedure in a particular circumstance to save the life or preserve the health of the woman," unquote. Now that's a very different spin, and obviously a more politically useful spin. The ACOG Executive Board copied your language verbatim into its final statement. Your language played an enormous role in both legal and political fights over banning partial birth abortion. The Supreme Court relied on it when striking down the Nebraska ban in Stenhart v. Carhart. Now, I'm really stunned by what appears to be a real politicization of science. The political objective of keeping partial birth abortion legal appears to have trumped what a medical organization originally wrote and left to its own scientific inquiry, and that they had concluded. Did you write that memo?
Senator, with respect, I don't think that that's what happened here.
I'm happy to have you clarify. That's my question. Did you write that memo?
I'm sorry, the memo which is?
The memo that basically caused them to go back to the language of medically necessary. That was the big issue to begin with.
Yes, well, I've seen the document, and the document
But did you write it? Is that your memo?
The document is certainly in my handwriting. I don't know whether the document was a product of a conversation that I had with them. If I could just go back, Senator Hatch,
okay.
This was an incredibly difficult issue for everybody who was associated with it for obvious reasons. The President Clinton had strong views on this issue, and what he thought was that this procedure should be banned in all cases except where the procedure was necessary to save the life or to prevent serious health consequences to the woman. And those were always his principles. And we tried over the course of the period of time when this statute was being considered, actually twice, to get him absolutely the best medical evidence on this subject possible. And it was not easy because, as everybody in Congress knows, different people said different things about this. There was conflicting evidence. And we tried to do our best to bring all the evidence, all the conflicting views to his attention. In the course of that, we did indeed speak with ACOG. ACOG had an interest in this statute, and ACOG had views about this statute. What ACOG thought and always conveyed to us was two things. What ACOG thought was that, on the one hand, they couldn't think of a circumstance in which this procedure was the absolutely only procedure that could be used in a given case. But second, on the other hand, that they could think of circumstances in which it was the medically best or medically most appropriate procedure, that it was the procedure with the least risk attached to it in terms of preventing the harm to the women's health. And so we knew that ACOG thought both of these things. We informed the President, President Clinton, of that fact. There did come a time when we saw a draft statement that stated the first of these things, which we knew ACOG to believe, but not the second, which we also knew ACOG to believe. And I had some discussions with ACOG about
Okay,
that draft.
My time is about up. Let me just ask that question again. Did you write, quote, "This, of course, would be a disaster," unquote?
The
Handwriting.
you
You didn't get that from the
No. You're exactly right. I'm sorry. I didn't realize
That's
you were
what I
referring.
wanted to know.
Yes. No, that's exactly right. And the disaster would be if the statement did not accurately reflect all of what ACOG thought. That there were two parts of what ACOG thought. And I recall generally, not with any great specificity, but recall generally talking to ACOG about that statement and about whether that statement was consistent with the views that we knew it had because they had stated them, that there was both not the only procedure, but also that it was in some circumstances the medically best procedure. And in their final statement, that sentence that it was not the only procedure, of course, remained because that is what they thought. But we did have some discussions about clarifying the second aspect of what they also thought, which was that it was in some circumstances the medically most appropriate procedure. And so I think that this was all done in order to present both to the President and to Congress the most accurate understanding of what this important organization of doctors believed with respect to this issue.
Well, I'll tell you, this bothers me a lot because I know that there were plenty of doctors in ACOG who did not believe that partial birth abortion was an essential procedure and who believed that it was really a brutal procedure. And it was a constant conflict there. And as you know, many in Congress came to the conclusion it was a brutal procedure, too, that really was unjustified. That bothers me that you intervened in that particular area in that way.